I was really excited to do this show. The reason we call it MentorPreneur, which is the newest and final title of the show, is because of the guy I'm about to sit down and talk to with. His name is Jason Tapolci. He is an entrepreneur like none other. The guy has been everywhere, has done everything to succeed, and it's great to watch and it's great to learn about, and that's what this show's about, is learning from other entrepreneurs to see what makes them tick and what they did, and finding in ourselves what we need to do to get where we want to get. So sit back, relax, enjoy my time with Mr. Jason Tapolci. We are here talking with, as always, entrepreneurs, small business owners who have lived the life, who've gone through the process of starting a business and live that life on a daily basis. We're living in a very popular time to be an entrepreneur. So I want you to get to know the people that do it so you can understand if it's for you or if this is completely outside of what you'd want to do. But anyway, I love doing this because I get to talk to people. As a small business owner, entrepreneur, you don't have a lot of people you work with. You end up having your contemporaries be other small business owners. So this guest today is one I'm very excited about because we became friends less than a year ago, but it was instant, and because we both have lived similar lives in this way. We went to the same high school, about 10 years apart, but our kids were in karate class together, and they got me involved. And we'll talk about that at all as we go on. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to my friend, Jason Tapolci. How you doing, bud?
How you doing, Kevin? Good to see you, too.
Yeah. So why don't you take a second, and you can look at any camera you want, and just give a quick background. It could be, I'm Jason the entrepreneur, or you could just talk about what you love to do, because we're going to get to all that. Okay. But I want you to just let everyone know who you are right now.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Jason Tapolci. I'm 49 years old, and I'm, as Kevin said, I graduated from Peters Township High School and went to IUP. Graduated from IUP in 1998, and went right into entrepreneurship, and that's about it. I'm married. I have one kid.
I like how you talk about going from high school to college, and then you became an entrepreneur. But you made fun of me because I showed you a clip of my last show where I showed that there was a guy who had started a grass cutting business, and he was happy with the couple $1,000s he made.
Right.
And then you said to me, that's ridiculously low. So just briefly, talk about your first entrepreneurial experience.
So here's what's funny. The gentleman, chief of police at South Strabane, he was talking about his grass business growing up. And he put me to shame.
So what was yours? Let's just keep building on this. We'll see who can top who as this time goes on here.
So when I was in 6th grade, I cut the neighbor's yard, make some cash, and I decided I wanted to go a little bit further. So I would go down the neighborhood a little bit further, and I got tired of pushing the lawnmower. So I said to my dad, "Hey, will you buy me a lawn tractor and a dump cart so I can put my mower in the back?" And I said, "I'll pay you back." And he said, "Sure." And he said 6% interest. And of course, I didn't understand then, but it was my first business lesson. So I ended up doing that. And from there, when I got my driver's license, expanded a little bit, little four-cylinder Dodge Colt, and then got a little bit bigger and bigger. Did it all through high school. Brought my cousin in, first cousin, Mike Bosco, and ended up doing it through end of college. And we ended up selling the whole business. He said, "What do you want to do? Should we just sell it piece by piece?" I said, "No, let's sell the whole thing together. Database, everything." So we found a guy to buy it, and he bought everything, and here we are.
How much you sold for?
$150,000. Right.
Okay. So yeah, that's why it was funny, because the last guy said he made about $3,000 in his summer thing, and I thought, okay, well that's pretty good for 1990s.
Sure.
That $3,000 again. Not disparaging him, but $150,000 after it's all said and done to sell, what a lot would see as like a high school, way to put some money in your pocket, take a girl on a date, you have some money in your pocket. Like that's what it was. And I guess you're talking about Peters Township, which is where we grew up. And I love that your dad said, no. You're not just going to get this from me, which a lot of parents in Peters maybe would have done. Just give this. Your dad said, no.
Right.
6% interest. I want this paid back, and so I love that story. As soon as I read that, I'm like, all right, he's coming on the show. He's coming on because we got to talk about that. So you went from college, and then you said, now I know you've sent this to me, and I don't know how we'd share this, but you said you have about 16 businesses that you've started.
I started and either made successful, had some failures, just like anybody else. But just to jump back real quick, my entrepreneurship, my background there comes from my father. He was real into businesses and things of that nature, so it doesn't surprise me that he did give me that lesson. But it started with, if I may, I'll get into the story a little bit.
Please.
So when I graduated college, I went to work for my dad. And a funny story is, we're eating dinner. It was my mom, me, and my older brother. And I just graduated, and I said, hey, what do you want me to do at the business? And he looked at me and said, I wouldn't hire you. He goes, you know nothing about computers.
Right.
And you showed no interest in this growing up.
Yeah.
So I was like kind of mad. I said, okay, my brother worked there.
Yeah.
He graduated like a year or two before me. And my mom, being a 100% Italian woman, she said she just stayed on my dad till he gave in.
Yeah.
Right. And he said, come on. He brought me aboard. And I took the attitude of, give me whatever you need done there. And if it's empty in trash cans, I'll be the best darn trash can emptier you ever saw.
Right.
And so, but it was tough because my brother.
Well, let's just, real quick. Just the business
Sure.
was it was computers, right? So,
Yeah, it was computer comfort.
So you would go to businesses. I know we had you. Yeah,
Yep.
That's one of the first things we connected on. Like we used to. I remember that name fully. So that you would come to our office and you would fix our computers, or your company would. So you were basically computer experts. Is kind of how that was.
That's
okay.
it. Yeah, we were external IT department for small to middle-sized businesses,
Yeah.
SMBs, and we would go. We did residential as well. And there's a story behind that. I won't get into that because I could talk for all day here.
I was gonna say,
But so yeah, that's what we did, and we went out to small businesses and we put in networks, servers. We did break, fix, and maintenance, and so that's how it started. And it actually started in the basement of my parents' house, so I was around it, but I knew nothing about computers when I started. Literally nothing.
because this was early '90s,
Right. So this would be 90. I graduated college in '98. He started it in late '80s.
Okay.
Okay, and
That's some good foresight, though.
it was.
I mean, that's
We lived out. I remember when he bought his first computer. We were living in Steamboat Springs. We drove 4 hours to Denver, Colorado, and we were all excited about this thing. We didn't even know what it really was.
Yeah.
He turns it on. It was the green screen, right? Those old green screens,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was like, "This kind of sucks."
this is not as exciting as I thought.
Right,
it would be.
right. So, but I go to work there, and it was tough at first because the employees saw my brother and I as, oh, you got a job because of daddy.
Right.
And so we really didn't get any respect. I didn't know anything about computers.
Right.
But with myself, the one thing that you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it even if I don't want to do it. Right. And so we ended up working our way up the company, and I don't know how far you want me to go with the story.
Well, no. I mean, we could talk much about that as you want, but I know that there was a point where you decided that you weren't going to. That was not going to be your career.
Right.
That was what you were going to do to get your basically cut your teeth in the business world.
Right.
But then you decided. Did you start right with your brother on their next business, or what was the next thing that you said? I'm going to go on my own.
What happened was, and I think this is an important part of the story. So in 2001, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I had been there since '98. My brother since '97. And so he left the business. And in April 26th of 2002, he passed away. And so we walk in and we are told, hey, listen, you guys got to run the company now. But the worst part was they had personally guaranteed the company from their personal assets.
Right.
So, we were told, hey, if this doesn't make it, and the company started struggling. That's right when Geek Squad started to come out, and it became more popular. So there was a lot more competition. And so we were 2 weeks away from going out of business. I ended up getting married in June 29th, 2002, so 2 months later. And go on my honeymoon. I come back and walk in the office. My brother had just shaved his head. I didn't even recognize him. He said, Jason, come here. And I said, Jeff? And I walk in, and he goes, he said 2 things. We're not going to make payroll in 2 weeks. And how was your honeymoon?
Yeah.
In that order.
Have you seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life? Because it starts out very much like this.
Does it really?
As you're talking, you're like, I didn't want to work for the family business. I started working for the family business. Dad, obviously, sadly passes on. The son feels like he's, going to go off and do other things, but he's like, I had to stay at the family business, because they personally guarantee it. That's how we've, most businesses I'm familiar with on the smaller level, it's all personally guaranteed by my house. This house you walk through, you think is nice. I don't own it. My business owns it.
Right.
The business falls apart. It's over. And so, so here you are at, you just got married, which, George just got married. Anyway, so all that stuff plays out in there. But so you're going back to your brother, and he says, all right, we got to make payroll. We're 2 weeks out.
We're 2 weeks out, and it's not stressful enough when your father passes away, married 35 years. My mom's a disaster. She isn't really a business person, and then she's going to lose everything. And I lived in Castle Shannon with my wife, and we had a little duplex. It was a real small duplex. So we said, what are we going to do if she loses everything? She was going to move in with us, just married. And so we ended up, I'll never forget, I took 2 days off and just went and played golf by myself. And I was on the second day, 9 holes in, and it was a beautiful day, sunny. There was a stream there, and I remember being hit with, you got 2 options. You can either lay down and die, or you can go out fighting. And I knew I was a fighter, so we get the team together, and we said, these are our 2 choices. What do you guys want to do? We said, we're going to fight. So we ended up selling anything that wasn't nailed down or absolutely needed.
Yeah.
And we ended up making payroll. There's a good story there.
So that saves you 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we ended up making it. I say we fell down, hit our head, got up, and here's where we are today.
Yeah.
Now, it's a lot of hard work and being in the right place at the right time, a little bit of luck, and, just having faith in yourself, I guess.
Yeah. It's interesting because Jefferson has that quote, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Right.
And I feel like it's almost, I don't want to say a cop-out to say it was luck, but things worked out because you put yourself in that position.
That's right.
You didn't quit. You said, I'm going to keep going. And we have the 2 options. We could just say, hey, let's fold this up. Mom can move in.
Right.
Everyone's taken care of. It's just we have to worry about this. But at what point did you decide we need to end? It was called Computer Comfort. At what point did you say Computer Comfort is over?
Well, so I took over Computer Comfort and grew that. We were only doing maybe $20,000 a month. Yeah. I grew it to 150, but we had just started a company called Pittsburgh Connect. It was dial-up internet. And what made us get into that was we were tired of the billable hours business.
Yeah.
Wait for the phone to ring, go out, fix a computer, bill them, wait 30 days, get your money. And so we wanted to have something. We always said, like Comcast, as long as you turn your TV on, you pay them, right?
Yeah.
Recurring revenue. And so we decided to get into dial-up internet in 2002.
That's not a bad time to do it.
Yeah, it was pretty much dying. I mean,
was it dying at then?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And by the way,
I guess I'm just lost on my hours on that.
It was that's when DSL was starting to come out.
I see.
High speed broadband. What's interesting to kind of flash forward here is we still own a company called Global Pops, which we ended up wholesaling dial-up internet to people like Earthlink, United Online, AOL, and we are the last network.
Right now, you currently are.
Yeah, we sell to those guys.
Okay.
If we went out of business or decide to close it, there is no more dial-up in the United States.
Oh, wow.
So
when you said Earthlink, these are names that coming back to me. Obviously, AOL is the most popular,
right?
And so, but when you said Earthlink, I'm like, I remember that. Those are names that we haven't heard since 2000.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so you're still dealing with. So you still have, how many clients do you have
we have
still use dial-up? And
those 3 big ones, they're the biggest ones.
Yeah.
But let's back up here a little bit. So we sold retail dial-up under Pittsburgh Connect here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We grew it to about 10,000 subscribers. Okay. And we said, what if we expand this and go nationwide?
Yeah.
Right. So we put together this network. And this is what when you say it's not about luck, it's about making the right decisions and putting yourself in a position where you can get lucky per se. And so we started to go to bigger telecoms, CLEX and ILEX, and we were purchasing, a piece of rack in a data center, putting in some what they call TNTs, these dial-up modems.
Yeah.
And we started to stitch together this network all over the United States. And we said, boy, we can sell everywhere then. Mm-hmm. Well, we end up making the problem worse because those all have costs. These big companies want monthly minimums. And so we had this big network and no one running on it. And this is where it got real interesting. That's back in the day with ISPs. Remember they were local ISPs. I'm trying to think of the one that was around here. But at any rate, Stargate was the name.
Yeah, I remember Stargate, yeah.
And so they only could sell local. Mm-hmm. And as the dial-up industry started to go down, what happened was their revenue was going down, but their expenses were fixed.
Yeah.
So they're just running right down to, but they had their own facilities and people to run their equipment. We said, wait a minute, we have a network. Why don't we approach the ISPs, say, use our network, it's nationwide, now you can sell nationwide, and you can get rid of all these expenses, right?
So you built the network, you panicked. You
Right.
thought, well, now we have all these overhead costs.
Right.
Well, who can use the work we've put in here?
That's right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And you think about, I mean,
as you're explaining, I'm like, wow, that is luck. No.
Well,
No.
you figure it's all about the pain in the market.
Right.
Right. If you can figure out what is that pain that they're having,
Right.
right, and you can solve that pain in a differentiating way.
Yeah.
You know, the big guys, the AOLs, Earthlinks, United Onlines, they were all big enough where they could sell nationwide.
Right.
These little guys weren't, and they're getting pinched. So when you remove that expense, that overhead expense, and now you just gave them their margins back, and they can sell nationwide, it really extended their life. I mean, it was like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, that's really a cool story. When you really break it down, like you said, all right, well, let's try to expand this, and you said, but no, in the end, that didn't work.
No,
But what we put the work in, it's got to
Right.
be worth something.
It's got to be right.
And I always think that. I'm like, I said this to my wife when we paid off our when we were paying down our house, and then we were learning about the HELOC and how to, like, you have the bank basically
Right.
pay you for your house. And so I said to her, I'm like, I don't know. In the end, it just feels like we're being paid back for the work we put in. You know, and
That's right.
You can't. You have to. Sometimes you have to sit back and say, I put the work in. Where am I making the money off of this? Because you
Right.
should. And that's awesome. That story is really cool that worked out. So basically, I'm counting now. I wish I could, like, use the screen that way, but have like a counter, like times where Jason hit rock bottom or something close to it. Like
Right.
where it's like, okay, so taking over the family business. And this is why I want to do this show, is to let people know it's not like just because you worked for a family company. I have a similar story myself where it's like, yeah, we work for the family company. So yes, I did not have to go through all the hoops to get employed there. But if it weren't for you, if it weren't for me, there would be no business there.
That's right.
And because things change, you have to adjust to that. And so, yeah, so maybe some people have that little bit of that boost where I'm working for the family business, but you had to go in a totally different direction.
People say, well, you had a head start because you went to work for the family business, and you got you're so lucky where you are today. I tell you, it's borderline almost offensive sometimes when people say, oh, you're so lucky.
It's a little offensive.
Because they don't realize what you went through.
Right.
And I always say there's the starting line. We were set back from the starting line. We weren't even at the starting line. We inherited this thing that we had to try to make work.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when you took over we're 2 weeks from closing.
Right.
That's pressure.
Talk about it.
Yeah. And so it's not, and yeah, if nothing else, maybe we should just change the name of the show from, it's not a gift to be given a family business.
That's right.
Sometimes it's, hey, this is a family legacy, sure, but I gotta work harder to make this work.
There's the second generation. I forget what the percentages. Is it 5% or 10%?
Not good.
It's not good at all.
No.
Third generation.
Yeah.
I mean, you forget it.
Yeah.
I actually, to have a friend, he would probably be a good guest to have on, but he's a third generation.
Okay.
He's doing well.
Yeah, that would be interesting to talk to him, because I know what it's like to be the second. Because you're like you said, your dad started from scratch. My dad started his business. There was nothing prior to that. So to be where you are it's such a cool. That's why I want to have you on. This is such a good story. So you got that going. At what point? Okay, what was next? We don't have to go all 16. But
No, we're not going to. There's some in there that were not worth talking about, right?
It would be funny to talk about the ones you went. How about this idea that didn't work at all?
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what we did next was we got into, as dial-up was dying, we knew it. We kept saying, we got another 5 years. We got to do something. It's got another 5 years.
Right.
I think we've said that 4 times now.
Yeah.
So 20 years later, it's still around.
Right.
It just won't die.
I just can't believe that. Yeah.
But so we decided we really went from overnight, maybe making 150 grand a month in our business total revenue to 1.45 in total revenue. When I say overnight, I mean a year.
So I'm assuming it's based on when you had that network set up.
Yep.
You let all the smaller people know, hey, you can jump on our network.
Right.
They jumped on that.
They were ISPs, internet service providers, call them resellers, and we went from none to 2,400, 2,500, something like that.
Yeah.
Really quickly. And I just, I'm a young guy.
Did you get dinged every like first of the month? Like here's your income? Was it like that? Like was the first of the month the best day of the month? Is that?
Oh yeah, that's the next business too.
Okay.
We collected everything up front,
Yeah.
and it was like it's great. So what we did was we wanted to get into voice over IP. That's when it was started to become, people knew about it, but it was still very young. So we said, well, our model is a wholesale business where we aggregate something together, right? In Global Pops, we're going to aggregate all these different colos. Okay, that's where we had POPs, points of presence, where people could dial into.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Another thing we should be adding to the show is like little things that you say, like acronyms that just pop up and they say, this is what Jason
That's
means.
all technology. You hear two people that are seasoned, they sit there and talk about,
Yeah.
you don't even understand what they're saying.
Right.
So we went and said, let's get into voice over IP.
Yeah.
We already had a network, right? And we were talking to everyone where we had our points of presence. Those were telecom companies. So we said, okay, well, geez, how do we leverage that then, right? You have to get telephone numbers to be a telephone provider, which is what VoIP is, voice over IP, see? So we approached all these carriers. Oh, I know where I was going with this. Aggregators, so we wanted a wholesale business that aggregated something together, it had recurring revenue. So, and then we sold to resellers. So basically, we didn't want to sell to end users. We didn't want any end user business.
Right.
It's too tough. You've been there. So we ended up approaching all of these vendors that we had, and we said, listen, we're going to get into voice over IP. We spend a lot of money with you, but that's going to be going away as dial-up goes away. So if we want to use you as a provider for voice over IP, can you give us a great deal? We've been loyal to you. So we come out of the gate with great pricing. We have a network. We already have the relationships with all the vendors. So we started to stitch that together. And that was really the beginning of VoIP Innovations, which was our most successful company.
Yeah.
That was sold in 2019. I sold that to Sangoma, which is a publicly traded company up in Canada.
So you built the business and it was working well. Was there a point where you said, I don't want to do this anymore, or this is about as far as I can take it, let's sell it? I'm just curious about how that process goes.
Yeah, and it was 2008 when we started that, but we also started a company called Inspira, which was, and this is important as well, and this is a real interesting story actually. Inspira was an IRA company. Okay, in the IRA business, people like Wells Fargo, New York Life,
Retirement plans.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they're pretty much 401k providers. So they sell to TPAs, third-party administrators, who then go out and sell to what they call plan sponsor. We had 70 employees at this time, something like that. Our HR person's a plan sponsor.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff or Jason, do you guys want to provide a 401k to the staff? Absolutely. So these TPAs sell to the plan sponsors, and whenever somebody leaves the company or gets let go, the company typically doesn't want to have those assets in their 401k.
Right.
So they'll say, take it, put it in an IRA somewhere. Well, the provider, Wells Fargo, New York Life, they don't want to lose those assets. So what they do is they stick an IRA platform underneath their 401k. Because losing, if you have a couple $100,000 in your 401k and you yank that out, you're losing all those points.
Right.
Right. So what ended up happening was that the 401k is so profitable, to manage one account, they charge $50. The
Wells Fargo does.
Yes.
Okay.
It would cost them $150 to manage that. So think about that. They're willing to lose $100.
So they charge you $50. But it costs them about $150.
Yeah, they charge the end user,
right?
$50, costs them $150.
Okay.
That's how important those assets are. When I say assets, the money that was in the 401k plan.
Right.
And so you figure, I don't know how many 100 million, IRA. That's a lot of money.
There's a lot of people with an IRA.
And why that was because it was a paper world. We made it digital, so we built softwares.
Yeah. So Inspira is the company you built to help companies like New York Life.
That's right.
Do this.
Yeah.
At a lesser cost. So they're paying $150. They were just eating the cost.
That's it.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So they were eating the $150, and you said, I bet you I can make that less.
Right. So and the reason how we did that was building a platform, a back office or a portal, right, where you can self-serve yourself, right? And so we built that, and that's what made VoIP Innovations very successful as well.
Yeah.
We changed the industry, right, by doing a few things that maybe I should come on a couple times because there's a bunch of good stuff
I was
here.
going to say that. Yeah, we'll have them on again. But what I'm interested, what's catching my attention is that everything that you do, whether it works or not, leads to another thing that seems to work or not, but could lead to another thing that works or not. And I think that, and I've learned this over the last year, is that there's so much available to you in just what you currently have going on that you could go 12 different directions from the little things that you're doing in our business.
I think the same thing about you.
Yeah, okay.
To be honest with you. Sometimes I'm a little jealous. I'm like,
no, we're about to get to why people should be jealous of you, not me. So anyway, so you take VoIP, VoIP, it's called VoIP Innovations.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then you have Inspira. Okay,
right.
So they're kind of working with each other, or they're
they're
not?
separate. We had so the way we structured our company was we had ABG Capital.
You're right.
That sat at the top. It was a C corp, and it was our holding management company and our capital. That's where we had the capital.
Okay.
So what we did is when we started having successes with Global Pops, we would take that money, some of it, and reinvest it so that we can keep our livelihoods going. And if you can picture a hierarchy, ABG Capital sits at the top.
Yeah.
And it housed all the back end or back office functionalities, your legal, your admin, your billing, accounting, IT, development, marketing, all the stuff that can be shared across what we call portfolio companies. So underneath ABG Capital, we had Q subs. So they were still part of ABG Capital, but they were their own entity. So we had end user services, which was part of dial-up. That was the Pittsburgh Connect.
Okay. As
ISPs went out of business, they had 100, 200, 1,000 end users left. We would buy them off them. And so we stuck them all under end user services. Okay, and then we had Global Pops.
Yeah.
We had VoIP Street. VoIP Street was before VoIP Innovations. When we would get into a new industry or new business, we started our businesses as the reseller themselves. So we could understand what the reseller it took to run that company and sell to end users.
Okay.
Once we did that, and it was less risk.
Right.
So then there was VoIP Innovations, Inspira, and we had Tapolci Foundation, the nonprofit. We gave back to less fortunate kids in the area. We'd bring them up from the schools, but again, that's probably the third show.
I do want to talk about that for sure.
So real quick, so we all shared those resources up top.
Yeah.
Each company doesn't need its own legal person or HR person.
Real quickly, when you say we, who all was involved in the capital?
The capital was, so my brother and I both owned 47%.
Okay.
We had a guy that was one of our first employees that my dad hired. He actually worked in the basement of our house.
Okay.
His name's Adam Scott. He has 4%, and a guy named Dan Ravenstall.
Okay.
Remember Ravenstall?
Yeah,
Luke
Luke.
Ravenstall. Yeah, that's his uncle.
His uncle. Okay.
So he owns 2%.
Okay. So basically, it's you and your brother.
Right.
Okay.
Do you know how we all started with a couple percent share?
Yeah.
In order for my dad to keep us around when he was running the company as it was struggling, he gave us shares.
I see.
That weren't worth the paper they were on.
Right.
At that point, right.
But look what happened.
Right.
That's why when someone offers you something like that, don't just say no.
Right. That's right.
It may not be worth something right now. But wow. Okay.
And so that's and how we ended up with 47% each. My mom obviously inherited all the shares my dad had when he passed. And so we actually purchased them off my mom through the profits of the company.
So she could live well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And our financial advisor, it's mine for a long time, and my mom's, he said, Judy, I'll never forget it, how much we had to pay each month. It was $16,667 a month for 5 years.
Okay.
And he said, cash the checks as soon as you get them, right? Because we don't know how long you're going to get them for.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But
that's funny. No. Okay. So I just want to get to when you made the decision to sell, because you sold Inspira.
Right. We sold Inspira first. That's
okay.
And the interesting thing there was, it took us 8 years for Inspira to really hit. VoIP Innovations and Inspira, we got right to the brink where Jeff and I said, we got to quit this. We're just sinking too much money every month into this. literally said, shut it down. And we have a guy named Ron Eggert, who was our CFO. He said, just give it another month. And that's what and they started to take off then. I mean, it was really
How many times has that story been played out? I mean, how many people say, I was just about to quit. I was just about to sell it off. Next thing you know, it takes off.
You mean that's that hole, when you start a business, you go down into the hole.
Yeah.
And, it gets darkest right before the light comes up.
Yeah.
And that's usually when people bail.
Yeah.
Because there's that decision.
Well, because, I mean, and I can't really blame them.
I can't either.
Because they look and go, I got to move on. I'm
Right.
just, how many more months can I do this? And so, but you said they started to take off.
Right. And so it took us 8 years. We had meeting after meeting with a New York Life or a Wells Fargo before we actually landed something.
Yeah.
Because it's very tough when they love the platform, love the idea. This is great. We're going to save all kind of money. Hey, what other big companies are buying from you right now?
Yeah.
And when you say you're the first,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Right.
But so we landed Wells Fargo, and that was the big one.
Did you ever worry about, after all these meetings, that they were going to figure out how to do it on their own?
That was another, when I said it had to be a wholesale business, recurring revenue, aggregating something together, it had to have a high barrier to entry.
Okay.
And that was developing the software behind it, the back end, and that made it very tough for somebody else to replicate.
Because you've been through the work. You know what it took.
Right,
So,
absolutely. And that also, building that recurring revenue and having a proprietary software, that's how you get offered a lot of money for your businesses, right? Because it's not easily replicated.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was we decided it was time to sell. It just got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
I think I play better in the small business. Once you get to a certain, we were at 48 million in revenue, something like that. And there's different buttons to push and levers to pull to get to that next stage.
Yeah.
And we had brought in a director level. So we had the C-class, CEOs, whatever, and then we had managers, and then assistant managers, and then the frontline people. So sitting at the top as a CEO, it was nice. I worked directly with each manager. But then you bring in director level, and that whole saying, it gets lonely, it's lonely at the top. I get what that means now, because they run things now.
Right.
And
to get to you is hard.
Right.
From the lower people, and you're a personable guy. This is what I've learned over the last 9 months. You like to talk. You like to be friends.
Yeah, so?
Yeah, I do. At least I think so. When you like somebody, maybe that's not true. But so you don't like being untouchable in the business situation.
Not at all. And this is interesting as well. When we started, we couldn't afford people that went to college.
Right.
Right. We just couldn't afford them. So what we did was we went and brought on people that we needed, technology people, developers. These were people that nobody gave a chance to. They really didn't even go to a technical school.
Yeah.
They sat in their basement, probably when we were out on the weekends in high school having fun.
Right.
And they sat there and geeked out on their computer, and so we give them a chance. And be honest with you, that's what we could afford back in the day.
Right.
And so as they grow in the company, making more and more money, I mean, I don't know how many times we heard, I never thought I'd be making this amount of money right? And so it became a culture, a family culture where we watched people, be single, find a girlfriend, get married, buy their first house, have kids. Yeah. And that's pretty gratifying. I'm sure you've been
It's extremely gratifying, especially like right now we're taping a couple days from Christmas. That's, to me, one of my favorite parts is knowing that Christmases are better because we're involved, that we're around. We provide that opportunity that makes their Christmas tree is full.
That's right.
Because of stuff that we help them do. And
it also provides a lot of anxiety as well.
Sure.
It puts that pressure on that, you got to keep, this thing going.
Right.
And we made a decision at one point, and we were big in culture, the culture of the company. I think 31 times or 30 times we were best places to work in PA and in Pittsburgh. And that was, I'm more proud of that than I am all the Inc. 500, 5,000 fastest growing companies in Pittsburgh, because culture is everything.
Right.
Right. And so we decided that we're going to do profit sharing. And I tell this to people all the time in their business. They think, oh, I'm going to give away money. but they don't really understand that when you do profit sharing, we took 10% of our net profit every month. You know, and we were doing quite a bit. We stuck it in a bank account, right? And at the end of the year, we had a formula. It was how long you've been working here, how much do you make, and what was your review, your scores on your review. And so there was people that, you know, our head developer or some of the higher end people, they were getting $40,000, $50,000, $30,000 bonuses at the end of the year, this time of year.
Wow.
And what we found out was, I'll never forget our admin person, Sarah. I come in one day, we always had styrofoam cups for coffee. So you go and you get a styrofoam cup, you drink a cup, throw it out. You may walk in, get a cup of water, just throw it back and throw that one out, go get another cup of coffee. So it was $500 a month on styrofoam cups. I come walking in, there's no styrofoam cups, but there's 2 ceramic cups with a logo on it sitting on my desk. And so I go up to Sarah and I say, hey, we don't have any styrofoam cups. She says, I know, they're gone now. Yeah. You should have 2 ceramic coffee mugs on your desk. I said, yeah, I saw those, are nice. And I said, she goes, those are your new cups, you're going to use them now. And she said, it cost me $1,000 to get all those. Yeah. But we were paying $500 a month. Yeah. Right? Now we don't have to do that. So 2 months, we make our money back. And I looked at her and I said, well, why'd you do that? Yeah. She goes, because we get 10% of the profits.
Smart.
And that lowers our cost. Yeah. That's the way it changed.
That simple thing. That's amazing. I love that. I love that story.
I mean, my brother, he likes to buy toys. Yeah. I never forget, it was like a $15,000 smart board, and the staff was like, we don't need this. Yeah. Right?
It's amazing you can live without when you're tied to the bottom line.
That's right.
And that's amazing. Did any of those go on to like start their own businesses or anything like that? Or
I mean, our average tenure was like 10 years. We had people there that were there 20 years. Yeah. I mean, if you weren't there for 5 years, I can't think of many people that weren't there for 5 years, except for the people that we brought in through growth. Yeah. They just stayed there. Yeah. I mean, you had a piece of equipment go down, server go down. Yeah. We weren't even hearing about it. Yeah. They were down there at night, running through walls for you.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's good. It's all about the culture. That's interesting.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Culture is everything. So let's get to what you want to talk about, which is, when did we decide to sell? Yeah. Right. And it just it wasn't fun anymore. Right. And the stress, and it became, it just was more corporate. Mm-hmm. It was a corporate environment. We had a board of directors. Right. And so we decided to sell. I executed my buy-sell agreement. And my brother, he ended up saying, hey, can I sell with you? I said yes. Mm-hmm. And we got an investment banker from Boston. And that's when we started to sell. Yeah. And he was supposed to sell, we were going to sell Global Pups, Inspira, and VoIP Innovations. Mm-hmm. We started with Inspire, 6 months, boom, done. Yeah. Did really well on that one.
Is that the easiest one to sell?
It turned out to be. Yeah, it was real easy. Yeah. Then we decided to sell VoIP Innovations. That's the company I ran and grew. Yeah. And what a nightmare.
Just trying to get it.
I mean, 18 months.
Yeah.
And
for those of you looking to flip businesses, it's not as simple as you'd think.
Heck no. Yeah, especially when you get to that size, and that's not a big company. Yeah. I mean, we are for most people would think it's a big company, but small business is defined way different than people think. Right. And so we, PEs, private equity firms, to meet with 20 of them coming in, going places. Strategic buyers that were competitors. And Sangoma, like I said, they were a publicly traded company. Mm-hmm. That's what they did. That's how they grew. Yeah. They didn't really grow organically. They did it to a degree, but it's more through acquisition. Yeah. So it's my first big deal, right? Yeah. And if I could go back and do it again, there's many things I'd probably do differently.
Right. But, there's so much good information there. I do feel like I could talk about this for hours, because there's so much about the way you approach culture, about the way that you approach just living your life in the business world. Just saying, hey, I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep going. Really, we're definitely going to have you back on, or do something all together, just you and me. I don't know, because it's so much fun.
Well, but, when you meet somebody that has been down that road, I don't care if it's big or small. Yeah. You know when you want to surround yourself by them. Yeah. Right? And you're one of them.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We got that on film? He likes me. Now, so I do want to talk to you, though, about what you're looking to do now. Because what started one of our conversations, like, well, I need to do something else with my life. There's something missing, and you're telling me through our conversations, and whether you fully get it or not, you can help others, and you want to help others. And
Absolutely.
that's what you are looking to do now. You want to help other people do what you did to a certain level, whether it's small business, like super small, like they're a single dentist and grow their business, or big companies. So talk to me about what you'd love to have happen in your life now.
Well, I mean, I tell you, in 2019, October is when we sold VoIP Innovations. We decided to keep Global Pops, and it was probably the biggest letdown.
Yeah.
I mean, you sell it, you sign the paper, and you said, holy wow.
Yeah.
And then in the same breath, you're saying, oh no, what now?
Right.
Your whole purpose, your fulfillment is gone.
And luckily, 2 months later, the whole world shut down. You could just sit at home and say, well, no one else can do anything anyway. So.
Well, yeah, that's kind of scary too when your money's in the market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, so.
Right.
But so it became, and I didn't realize it in 2019, but as the years went by, everyone says, why don't you just do nothing? Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy. I can almost guarantee you most people can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of fulfillment. And so as years went by, and I'm still figuring this out now, you know, it's the classic, I hate to use the term midlife crisis, but, you know, if you think of a bell curve, right? On this side, you're born, you have no baggage. We change every 4 to 7 years. That's just the way it is. You go to high school, maybe you graduate and go to college. You know, you get married, you have a kid leaves the nest, and you try to go to retirement, and you're at the top of the bell curve.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be the best time, right? This is great. This is what we've been working for. Society says we should do these things.
Right.
And again, it's a huge letdown.
Yeah.
You know, and then the back end of the bell curve, you're getting towards death. You start to see more in your rearview mirror, right? And so going through this whole process, seeing a counselor, right, reading, researching, you know, so I started a couple businesses, MentorPreneur, right? That's to help other entrepreneurs grow their business. I don't care if I make any money from it.
Right.
I just like doing it. You know, I'm not some book smart guy. You know, I just worked hard and a little bit lucky, but also new business. And so that was, I didn't realize it, but that was more aligned towards how to solve this problem of mine. And then I got into another company, strategy, virtual marketing, and it just doesn't get me like it used to. Right. And it's because it's benefiting me.
Right.
Potentially.
Let me ask you this. You've helped some people. Obviously, you've done some consulting. Did those moments help you?
Oh, they're the best.
They're the best. Okay.
They're that.
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
Yeah.
And that's something, I think that's one of the first things we spoke about was how gratifying it is to help somebody else.
Yeah.
I can, you know, you have a couple stories you told me about your buddy, and yeah, there's nothing better than that. And that's the answer.
Right.
It's not about, you know, I'm thinking to myself, why isn't these businesses, I used to love that. Because you don't need to do it now.
Right.
Right? You know, you needed to do that. You wanted to support your family. And now what I'm learning is you have to look internally. And you have to say, what really makes me happy in life?
Right.
What gives me joy? And then wrap that around others, helping others. You know, and this is a touchy subject, but I'm a man of faith as well. You can put those three together, and that's how you live that backside of the life happy. They say that's the happiest time of your life is the backside.
Yeah. If you not I don't think you have to play everything right to get to that point.
No.
But as long as you are in that mental state where you're like, this is the time when I should be enjoying that and paying it forward.
That's
but,
right.
But and so that's what I love about that. And we'll be having a graphic on here that tells people how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
So they can have you help them with their business.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it's not free, but it's not.
You know
maybe
what? You know how many conversations I have with people? They give me a call. And I think the most fun part for me is really hearing their story.
Yeah.
What
do you think this is?
I
just want to hear the story.
That's right. They're great. You know,
Yeah.
and every story has a struggle.
Yep.
So, and it's almost like a rite of passage. That's the way I see it. And it has a story. And I always say, I'm going to write a book at some point. Not about me. I want it to be about, hey, listen, if you have the right attitude, right, and you have the drive, and you want to do it, live the American dream, you can do it, right? Absolutely. And if you want some advice, input, help, me, Kevin, that's
people out there that help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This has been awesome. I've really enjoyed this. I thought I was going to like it, and as I'm coming here, I'm like, I bet this is going to be pretty good. I've loved every second of this. We got to do this more and more and more.
So we going to spar tonight at karate?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're karate. We have karate tonight. If we're going to spar tonight, I'd rather not. I'd rather just. This is why it's during sparring, and I'll leave with this. During sparring, I do like to talk to you about business, not just because I enjoy the business talk, but because I get punched less.
Right,
and I like
right.
that. I prefer that. I know that's weird to go to karate class and not want to get punched, but I love not getting punched in class. So
talk about an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Noah, he's going to be on here.
We're going to get Noah on here. We have to, because he's 18 and he's killing it.
Yep,
This is
absolutely.
So, Jason, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
This has been awesome.
Yep.
You can always subscribe, and share so more people can hear what we have to talk about. Thanks for being here.